Welcome back. This is episode 149 of the NYYST podcast. I am your host, Christian. As always, joined by my co-host, Chris.
You. And Teddy Bear Ride.
Yeah. Ryan had the sniffles today, and he couldn't come out and play. Oh. But meanwhile, I looked at the sketch, and the Eagles are playing at 1 o'clock.
Sketch.
You know, we're recording right around noon here on Sunday afternoon. So
a beautiful Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, it's just like straight up buckets of rain coming down.
Literally.
Later on in the show, we'll have our good pal Joe Rivera, the sporting news, on with us. Joe spent nearly an hour here talking a bunch of...
You took your headphones off.
Yeah.
You don't like listening to yourself?
No, I don't.
You would know how loud you sound.
Thanks, I don't really care.
Oh, look at that. Go back just a little.
What, here?
Oh,
is that good for you?
Wow. So
right.
good for me.
Was
it good for you?
Talked about some managerial openings that were filled, a little World Series talk. And
if you're a baseball fan, it was a great hour to listen in on. I'll tell you that.
Okay. So we recorded the interview with Joe already, and then it'll be inserted after we do what we do here. So if you're wondering when you listen in Monday morning why we're talking about the World Series being tied at 2-2, it's because we're recording Sunday morning, and the World Series is tied 2-2. So, you know, I don't know what the weather in D.C. is like. I don't know if this is all up and down the East Coast here. So
they were getting a lot of it last night. Did you catch the end of the game?
No.
It's starting to rain pretty bad.
So it might still be tied 2-2 Monday morning, but if we're just a time frame here. Recording Sunday morning after the Astros tied the World Series up last night. Also today, we'll get to this briefly in a few moments, actually. Our first week of the Keep 'em Dump 'ems, doing things a little bit differently this year. Instead of kind of going through everybody and, you know, doing position by position, we picked 15 names and we broke them up into 3 different groupings. And, you know, these are more
polarizing guys,
more polarizing, hot button type guys. Some of them are also pending free agents. So, you know, you can vote on, you had the opportunity for the first 5 guys to vote on if you would bring a guy back or if he is currently on the team, if you even want him there.
It's so annoying on Twitter. I know you've gone at some people.
That people don't know how to read.
Just read it. We're not sitting here. The first guy we're going to talk about is Giancarlo Stanton. We're not sitting here saying, will the Yankees keep him? Will they dump him? Will they do this? No, I really don't give a shit. You know, there's rumblings out there that he could be traded. I don't see that ever happening. Maybe I'm wrong. That's not the point. We want to gauge the fan base. We want to see which side of the fence these guys stand on right now. And it's a fun thing to do in the offseason, and I think it's an important thing to do.
All season long, we're bombarded with tweets. Oh, this guy sucks. Get rid of him. I would have never signed him. And this is what this is designed to do. You get to play GM. If you had the keys to the kingdom and you could get rid of a guy, if you could re-sign a guy, you could let a guy walk, would you do it? It's not, can the Yankees realistically do it? Would you do it?
Keep him or dump him. Stack guy Rye.
I don't know. Let's see how the Bear fills in this week.
Okay. That's fair.
Brian Cashman gave his yearly end of the season press conference this week, and again, it was a few weeks too soon. And now it's becoming this new fun little tradition that the Yankees are doing where they're announcing one of their starting players has to get Tommy John surgery. Last year it was Didi Gregorius, and this year now it's Aaron Hicks. After
Crazy.
we were told he didn't need Tommy John surgery, now he's getting friggin' Tommy John surgery.
Crazy.
So,
not to cut you off, but we always forget. If you're listening, if you've been a loyal listener of ours, please take 2 seconds if you listen on iTunes to make sure you subscribe, rate and review the podcast. Also, we are on YouTube. Check us out. We really grew our YouTube for just starting this, over the last few months. But we got a nice little layout of what we're going to talk about, what's on deck. Make sure you subscribe if you're listening or watching this show right now. Leave us a thumbs up, all that fun stuff that we hate to say and always forget.
Yeah, just like we always hate to say, oh, well, now Aaron Hicks is injured. But he is,
right.
again.
Again.
So he was sitting around playing with his friend in Arizona or whatever the hell he was doing. He was video recording himself, throwing the ball, and said, "Hey, Yankees, I feel great. I can play in the ALCS," which he did. And, maybe the ALCS is over in 5 games if he doesn't hit that home run.
It absolutely is.
But, the guy now we're looking at 8 to 10 months without your starting center fielder.
Yeah, but how much stock do you put into the Yankees saying it would have been either way?
Either way, what?
Cashman said in so many words that him playing in the ALCS had no real bearing on if he was going to need the surgery.
So why didn't he get it when he was hurt in August?
Because what I think he was saying, it was inevitable either way.
So they should have just had it in August, is what you're saying?
No. He would have gone through this whole process of trying to let it heal and rework it. But he said that they thought he would have still needed it, that the ALCS it wasn't necessarily the cause of him needing the surgery.
I'm just saying, I don't know what these 3 or 4 games that he ended up playing in really mattered. He should have just had friggin' Tommy John surgery in August. We all knew it. I think we all knew it.
Yeah, we said it immediately.
So now what?
Really,
realistically speaking, are you okay with Mike Tauchman being the starting center fielder for the Yankees next year?
No, I'm not. I'm not, but I also wasn't okay with Brett Gardner playing. How many games they ended up playing? 140 something this year?
Like that, yeah.
I didn't want to see him play over 80. And look at the season he put up. So, and Tauchman made a name for himself. He had a really good year.
I would say based on who is currently on the roster,
there's better options.
Who, the Mike Tauchman?
Yeah.
Who?
I don't know, man. If you're not going to get rid of Clint Frazier, you drill defense into this guy until he literally can catch a fly ball with his eyes closed.
You want to just insert him as a starting center
fielder?
Dude,
if you're not going to get rid of him, no, I know, I agree with you, but he is so valuable at the plate that it's just tough for me to just, if they're going to hang on to him, to say, yeah, but Mike Tauchman's the better option.
I think he is.
Like, how is this an excuse at this point that this guy can't field a fly ball, that he's just going to rot in the minor leagues?
No, I think, he's,
Dude, if you can't beat out Mike Tauchman by now and you were the number 1 prospect for a while, you're not going anywhere. You're never going to be successful then.
Well, we'll talk about that in a few minutes because Clint Frazier is in this week's group of keep him and dump him. So, but realistically speaking, I think if you look at the roster right now, I don't see the Yankees going out there and making a move for another outfielder.
No, they can't.
And Brian Cashman, in so many words, said that Jacoby Ellsbury is not even an option in 2020.
I think he knows that he's dead or something. He just pretty much said, don't mention his name anymore.
So, really, the other thing I heard this week is that, you just stick Aaron Judge out in center field.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I'm sorry. I don't.
You don't.
He could probably do it, but I don't want him to.
No, you don't do that, ever. Another thing we should bring up quickly, Cashman was not afraid to really talk about evaluating this training staff and the guys involved in these rehabs and all that, because we said it all along. If you wanted to sit here and say, hey, injuries happen, fine. My biggest issue was always that these guys were coming back and getting and then 2 weeks later back on the IL with the same injury. That shouldn't be happening. And it sounds like Cashman's ready to make some moves.
Is it cosmetic, though? It's just something to do.
I don't. Not with the way. Did you actually listen to that part of the presser?
No.
He was very, very
I'm sure he's upset
adamant
by
on it. Yeah, he did not sound happy. It pretty much he pretty much made it sound like he's already made some moves.
Yeah,
but
no,
he
that I did
wasn't
hear
at the liberty of saying
he didn't want, because I guess guys might still be working. He hasn't let go of anybody yet, but I think they may have made some decisions. Yeah, you know what? If that's what they want to do, enough with the injuries next year.
You're always gonna have injuries.
Stuff is gonna happen, but you don't need a guy like Stanton pulling one muscle and then he's out for the entire year because he pulled 4 more while he was on his rehab assignment.
Every time Stanton looked like he was starting to find his swing this year, he went missing again.
So, I don't know. It is what it is, really. You just hope that you bring in somebody that's better, and they're just not making moves because they were aggravated with the way things happened this year.
Yeah, I agree.
So you just want to dive right into this here?
Let's dive,
Is there
baby.
anything else from the Brian Cashman press conference that you kind of want to talk about?
I honestly, I just thought it was an overall great presser. Some fans are frustrated with him because he sticks to the same thing he says over and over again. This season ultimately was a failure, but it wasn't in regards to how they overcame a lot of adversity, and I think we can all agree on that. But he really didn't. He didn't. Every fan was waiting for him when asked about Garrett Cole, would they break the bank? He didn't veer away from what they've always said and always done. But guys, this is a business.
Yeah, he can't go out there and say, "Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah, I'm
spend
gonna give him
$500
everything."
million
Right.
on Garrett Cole."
So come on, we're both on the same page here, me and you. They gotta sign this guy.
Oh, I agree.
And I think we still have to give Cashman the benefit of the doubt until it doesn't happen. Then we can sit here and we'll take two full shows just ripping him. Okay? But until then, don't take his words to heart when it comes to will they veer away from the game plan. He can't say that right now. I thought it was a great presser. I really did.
Well, you're going to learn a lot about the hierarchy of the Yankees in this offseason because Cashman has said that, Hal is open to spending money. He just wants a plan put in place on how it will benefit the team. He doesn't want reckless spending like Jacoby Ellsbury, okay?
Listen, when you're selling something and buying something, when you're the seller and you're the buyer, for a deal to work, it has to make sense on both ends. Whether that deal pans out in the end for either side or not, at the time it needs to make sense. And Hal's a guy who wants everything to make sense.
I saw my first revenue chart of the offseason today. I love those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We saw them all fucking off-season last year. And then when they signed DJ, everyone bitched. But how'd that turn out?
All I'm saying is Cashman is not, he's not going to throw his boss under the bus. He doesn't want to get fired, obviously. But he keeps reiterating, hey, Hal's going to give me the money if I present. He's basically saying, Hal will give me what I want if I present it to him in a way he wants to hear it.
And it sounds like the way that whole process works is Cashman has a handful of scouts or analytical guys that he sits down with, and they first pitch Cashman, sell Cashman, and then Cashman sells Hal. And that's been the process. I mean, that's why DJ LeMahieu is a New York Yankee right now. Cashman didn't even want him. He was sold on him. So you got to just let the process work out. But we're not sitting here and saying, trust this team right now because we've been hurt now. All we're saying is let the process just work itself out before the bitching starts, because let's just see if they change their ways right now.
It's going to be really interesting to see how Garrett Cole plays out. If he goes somewhere else because he wants to go somewhere else, that's one thing.
Right. That's one thing. But if they can control it and he doesn't come here.
If Cashman, because we really still don't know who doesn't want to spend the money. Is it Hal? Is it Brian Cashman? We really don't know right now. And to this point, they really haven't done anything glaring in my mind where you had to say to yourself, wow, this is a real slam dunk. All it took was money. Why didn't they do it? We all think that Patrick Corbin is a little overvalued in his ERA in the postseason. I mean, everybody screamed and was like, oh, you didn't sign Patrick Corbin. But if he was pitching like this for the Yankees in the postseason, he's a bum. He sucks. Why'd you give him all this money? So, and again, we say this. It's not about April through September anymore for the Yankees. It's about what they do in October. So, a guy can pitch to a 2-something ERA in the regular season. If he's going to pitch to a 7 ERA in October, it doesn't do. I mean, what good is he?
Right.
Because the Yankees won 103 games this year, and they barely had a semblance of a starting rotation at times this year.
That's true.
So we're going to see. We're going to see, because we know Brian Cashman's love for Garrett Cole. I think if there's going to be one guy that gets Brian Cashman and go up there and to Hal and said, I need this amount of money, it's going to be Garrett Cole. And if Hal says no, then we know that Hal is willing to spend to this level, but not to this level. And then you can stop maybe blaming Brian Cashman for certain things.
Before we get into the keep 'em dump 'ems, I just have to ask you this because it's been on my mind. Cole hasn't looked the same his last couple,
Last two.
his last 2 times out, right? If he goes out, let's just say, when is he due up to pitch again? Do you know?
He's pitching tonight.
Is it tonight?
Yeah, game 5.
Oh, right. If he goes out there tonight, assuming they're going to play, and he gets shelled, does that change your view on him?
He's been so good, though.
I mean,
know. He's hitting a slump at the wrong time.
Right. But the thing is, he was so good, not just in the postseason, man. He's been so good since like May. Yeah. So do you put any stock into that, or is it just kind of, at this point, he's already made a name for himself no matter what?
No, I think he's already done enough where you don't really worry about that too much.
Yeah, I agree.
So, we'll see. And if then Brian Cashman's like, hey, this guy wants this, and, my analytics say no, then, then Brian Cashman's the guy to rip. I think right now, until things hit Hal Steinbrenner's desk, you can't really rip him for it. We don't know what's been on his desk at this point.
If Cole goes somewhere else because of the money, because he wasn't offered the same or more from New York, that's a problem for me. It's a big problem.
I'm still willing to put a line on it. Like if the Yankees offer him $38, $39, $40 million a year, and then somebody's like, okay, here's $45 million a year. I'm sorry.
Nope.
You definitely put your best foot forward there, because again, like we said this with Patrick Corbin, how far are you going to chase somebody?
I'm not putting a line on it. I'm sorry, not with this guy, not with what he's proven.
Yeah, well,
Patrick Corbin's different. I mean, I know him and Garrett Cole really, until Garrett Cole went to Houston, you can kind of compare the two and say, really, they weren't anywhere near what
I need to
were
know.
valuing.
I still need to know what he's being offered from the Yankees. I need to have a number in my mind.
I guess. I just don't think any. I just can't see money at this point. Me being okay with anything. I don't care how ridiculous any other offer is.
That's where we're going to disagree. If he's offered, if he's offered something in the upper 30s and somebody blows past that, you can't really hold the Yankees accountable for that. I'm sorry, you can't.
Listen,
if they're going to sit there and play fucking games, then yeah. But
do the Yankees win a World Series this year with Garrett Cole?
You can't say that definitively.
Then maybe you're right at that point. But if you could sit here definitively and say you're going to win a championship in 2020, having this kind of guy on your pitching staff, I don't know, man. We got to just see how it plays out.
I need to see the Yankees make the effort for him.
I mean, they need to really break the bank and still be outbid for me to be anywhere near okay with it.
Like we talk about the CC Sabathia thing all the time, right? Cashman was told you got to go above and beyond. He went $60 million above that, and then you know what? If he does that with Cole, and somebody still wants to top it, you know what? He did what he was asked to do. Somebody did it, and now Cole's gone. Because again, you gotta be Brian Cashman. He's still gonna be this prideful guy where like, you know what? You told me to do something. I'm not gonna sit here and play fucking games now. And then but then you know what? If he's going to do that, he's got to have a plan B, and it's got to be a good plan B. It can't be J-Hap plan B.
No, that can't happen at all. All right, let's get into the dumpums, bro.
All right, okay.
The keepums and the dumpums.
All right, so we did round 1, 5 guys. Again, we asked you to vote and comment on why you voted. We're going to read, maybe 3 per player of the fans that commented. Again, if you're unfamiliar with this, we're going to do 2 more rounds. The next round of voting will be on Wednesday. It's not if the Yankees can do this. It's would you do it? If you were the general manager of the Yankees, if you owned the Yankees and you could get rid of this player, would you do it? Or would you re-sign this player? That's all we're asking.
That's why if you don't follow us on Twitter at NYY Sports Talk, follow us right now. You can be a part of next round coming out Wednesday.
All right. First guy up. We went right to the big fish. Right to the big fish.
I like that.
It was Giancarlo Stanton. Do you know the results? Did you see him?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
All right. So
For the most part,
wouldn't
so
bother asking you to guess then. This was close. It was raised. I mean, it was 50-50 for a long time here. We left the polls up for 4 days. We got over 4,000 votes on this, which blew away any poll we've ever done, and the other polls that we had you vote on in round one here. But ultimately, the fans voted to keep Giancarlo Stanton 52% to 48%.
which while it was through like 3,000 votes, it was pretty much deadlocked for a long time at 50-50. And, it's all about the Stanton love-hate relationship, man. I just feel like no matter what this guy does, and again, he goes this postseason hurt, and it didn't help his case. Talk about a guy, just such a polarizing figure in this clubhouse right now. You either love this guy or you hate him. And over 4,000 votes, I mean, that's a big enough sample size at that point to say this is truly where he stands. I mean, what's a scientific poll? 1,600 votes?
Yeah, 12, I think.
That number is for a reason. That's enough people, they say, that if you truly did poll the entire, and I think all of these were scientific.
Yeah, they roll
right?
at least 2,000
So
votes.
these polls are very accurate when it comes to if you were to poll the entire Yankee fan base, how the poll would play out. And it is just shocking to me that how on the fence this fan base is over this guy. It's just truly love-hate. And I'm not shocked to see that he got to keep him. I'm not. I'm just shocked it wasn't a little bit higher. I thought it'd be like 60-40.
No, I'm not. I'm surprised that he got voted keep.
And
it just goes to show you that the loudest ones are the ones usually against something.
Yeah. But in the polls, we get the real outcome. So, I'm excited to hear some of the.
So how so we heard what the fans want. What do you want?
It's tough for me with Stanton because I think he's a great player. I like him, and I think one thing that the fans don't put enough stock into is that these guys in the clubhouse love Stanton. He's not like some asshole who just goes in and keeps to himself and whatever. Stanton's not that guy. He might come off that way, but he's not. And this clubhouse really likes this guy. So I would keep. Ultimately, I'm keeping him. It's Giancarlo Stanton. He's got to get healthy. And I need him to produce for an entire postseason next year. But I'm definitely keeping him.
I think he was on his way to it. He's just hurt this
year.
year.
I agree.
He definitely looked better.
And I hate the fact that his 2018 season is just shit on. I mean, the guy had 100 RBIs and 38 home runs in his first year in New York. In a summer where the face of the Yankees was injured. And he really carried this offense for a while. I'm definitely a keep. I'm giving him one more season before I really start getting on him.
Yeah, I'm going to vote to keep him. I just think we need to see him and Judge healthy together for 162 games plus the postseason.
I agree 100%. I mean, what was that one lineup in the playoffs where all the guys it was the first time they were in the lineup.
Yeah.
All season.
Like with game one of the division
him,
series.
DJ, Encarnacion, you got to give this guy one more year, man. I understand there's a lot of, there's a lot of animosity towards him. He gets a big paycheck. But hey, he's not the one signing that paycheck. It's the Yankees. Let's let this guy play out. I need a full healthy season out of him, and I need him to produce in the postseason next year.
Yeah, so I'm trying to go through to find some comments here from the fans, and like the first 15 of them are all, we can't trade him even if we wanted to. Again, that's not what we're asking here.
He has a no trade clause. We know.
Here, Junie NYYST. He's always been too erratic for that much money. We could get a great pitcher. Not naming names, we have several young, good hitters who are only going to get better. Okay. I mean, I don't. He's been too erratic.
But really, what you're doing at that point is ripping Cashman for getting him 2 years ago. You're not really, because of the money. I mean, let's just take him for what it is. Let's put the money aside for a second. This is Giancarlo Stanton. Are you telling me that 29 other teams wouldn't jump on him if they can have him penciled into their lineup?
Well, I've got a couple Red Sox fans in here actually saying send him to the Red Sox. So.
Right. There you go.
I don't know. This is what is so baffling about Giancarlo Stanton in regards to the Yankees are cheap. They took this guy's contract on. I don't know. Here's Big Rig. Stanton can't play defense. False. Can't run. Also false. Strikes out too much. True. Injured. Yes. Worthless. Also false. Those are his comments on Giancarlo Stanton. And here we go. Last one from Martian Sightings.
At Martian Sightings?
Yeah. His first year in pinstripes, he led the team in RBIs, was a consistent, durable player. 2 years ago, he smashed 59 home runs on his way to the MVP. This was an injury-plagued season for one of the most talented players in the game, and if you're ready to give up on him, shame on you.
I agree.
I think that pretty much sums it up there.
I agree, Martian man.
All right, next we have Miguel Andujar.
Ooh, Miggy bombs.
This was a close vote as well here. Miggy, 58% of fans voted to keep him.
How many votes on this one?
2,300.
Okay. You go first on this one.
No, this is a big dump for me. This is like I don't know, man. His bat is valuable. I get it. We all respect what he did at the plate, but if you believe in Gio Urshela and you don't really have a spot for Miguel Andujar right now.
I think the question you have to ask yourself is put aside what he can do offensively, because we know there's no room for him to just be a DH right now. Is he still a fit? I mean, does Miguel Andujar fit the mold right now that the New York Yankees have? I just say no. I mean, you're not just going to get rid of him for some scrub, but if you can move him for a big name, you got to do it. You have to, because I don't think he fits anymore. And I really agreed with your tweet that you put out the other day about giving him a first base glove. This is the time to do it. This is the time right now that if you're going to see if he can be decent at first base, this is the time right now. Because if he can be, hey, of course I want his bat in this lineup. But I just don't see it being realistic, to be honest, and he's a dump for me.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy that when you think about it, the two guys that Brian Cashman didn't want to trade for Garrett Cole, and he was right in doing this at the time, don't really fit into the Yankees' future plans.
Who was the other guy? Frazier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame. And if Garrett Cole at that time had a 1.9 ERA in his previous season and didn't give up as insane amount of home runs as he did, maybe you're having a different discussion. But I say to everyone, go back to Garrett Cole's numbers that year. You're not giving up. I'm sorry, you're not giving up Andujar and Frazier for that at that time. Now, 100%. But at the time, no.
Yeah, again, I don't really believe in any of the Yankees' first base options for 2020. So if you want to see if he can play first base, okay. But ultimately,
I don't think you're being fair enough to Luke Voit, to be honest.
Again, he's a guy that's pushing his late 20s now. He's not great defensively. So again, I'm not saying that he's worthless. I'm just saying, if the Yankees could get Andujar to be a competent first baseman, I probably like him better.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I don't think that's a route they're looking at.
Well, I think it just fits better. It just fits better. If
I
he can
think
be a
Andujar, from what
baseman.
I've seen, is a much better overall hitter than Luke Voit.
Absolutely.
But again, it's going to be hard to trade him coming off an injury-plagued season. But we're going to take the role that we said, if you could, would you? And yes, I would. I would dump Miguel Andujar.
Dump.
Michael Eddy here says, to the 42% of you that you're going to dump this kid who carried the team offensively in 2018, the runner-up to the Rookie of the Year, hitting 292, blah, 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 RBIs, blah, 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 because he got hurt in spring training, get a clue. He didn't get hurt in spring training, actually.
No, he didn't.
You get a clue, Michael.
But you know what? He's not
totally wrong.
He's not. I mean, I get it. It's just more of a...
How much better did you feel about the Yankees this year because they had a competent defender at pretty much every defensive position?
Listen, if you're voting dump, and I think this is, what was his name, Michael?
Yeah.
I think this is where Michael's coming from. If you're voting dump because you're a year removed from how good his season was, in 2018, and you're just forgetting all about that and saying, fuck it, we don't need him, and you're voting dump for that, I agree with Mike on that point. I'm calling him Mike. But if you're voting dump because of what I just said, where you're really looking at this team as a whole and you're looking at Gio as a competent offensive player as well as how great he is defensively, you're not wrong. I mean, you're just not wrong at that point. But if you're irrationally voting dump, then I see where he's coming from.
All right, here we go. Dangerous management tweets. This is tough here. This was the toughest one. I love Andujar's potential, but I love Urshela's. He's got a lot of grammaticals and misspellings in here, so it might be hard for me to read this. But I love Urshela's game more. Keep him until a trade worthy of him comes along, especially if you can get a couple of young prospects. Okay. And hashtag thank you CC. That's their name.
What's their handle?
Does clues.
Okay, forget it.
He's going to hit above 310 next year. Book it. On base won't be great, but he'll be competing for a batting title. He'll have a Devers-like year for next season.
Batting 310 is not going to put you up for a batting title. And I'd rather have a guy bat 280 with a 4, close to 4 on base percentage than a guy to bat 310 and have a shitty on base percentage. We've seen how this team operates this past year and how important it is to work at bats and get on base. That's my biggest concern. So I'm completely disagreeing with that comment.
Yeah. These guys are pretty much tied together. The next guy is Giovanni Urshela.
The Urshela landslide, I call it.
Yeah, it was a landslide because Gio was voted 95% to keep him with just under 2,200 votes.
That's pretty significant. What was the percentage? 95?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the exact votes? I got to do this.
What do you mean what was the exact
How
votes?
many votes came in?
2188.
2188. 2188. Wow. 2,079 votes went to keep at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Why not? What would be your reasons to dump him?
Do you trust his bat? We bring this up with Joe, and you'll hear it in a few minutes when we play the interview. Was this an aberration, or is this who Gio Urshela is now? I mean, obviously, if this is who Gio Urshela is now, you keep him. There's no reason not to. He's a better defender than Miguel Andujar, and if you're going to get a type of offense out of him, the uptick in what you get from Andujar is not worth it.
All right, think of it this way. This is how I think of it. Let's just assume Andujar, they throw him a first base glove, and it doesn't work out. They end up trading him for a pitcher. A pretty good pitcher out there. If Gio Urshela comes back, is he breaking the Yankees' bank?
No.
No, right? And if he doesn't do well offensively and you need to bench him, do you still have other options to make that work?
Oh, this year.
Next year.
Yeah, coming into 2020, yeah.
With as good of a season as he had, and we saw him come through in the postseason, which was even more important to me. With the season he had, is he really not worth at least giving him another shot at this to see if that bat is real or not? There's just no risk to me at that point. Why would you dump him? There's just no reason. There's no logical reason. Even if you keep Miguel Andujar, there is no reason to dump Gio Urshela. Because maybe his bat isn't, it was, it was a fluke? No. I mean,
trying to look up his contract status.
It's not like the guy's getting $20 million a year. Jesus. There's just no reason. That's why I'm a solid keep on that. And that's why I'm not shocked that it was that much of a landslide. He can't be making much, man.
I just want to know when he hits free agency, really. And if he...
I mean, unless you're saying to dump him, maybe you think he's going to be the deciding factor in a big trade.
No, he won't be.
He definitely won't be.
He's 28 years old right now.
Because we're sitting here debating, was his bat a fluke or not? And if you talk to all the, analytic buffs out there.
The Yankees have him under control for another 4 years.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
And his expected... it's expected he will earn a base salary of $2.2. No, actually, he will get $2.2 million from the Yankees next season, and he'll have 3 arbitration years after that. So
there's literally just no logical reason to dump this guy right now, and that's where I stand.
All right, BX Bombers.
Are you a keep?
Yeah, I'm keeping. Like I said, It really depends on if you trust his bat or not, and for $2.2 million, I think it's worth the risk. Absolutely. Here, Lance BX Bombers 99. Urshela had an outstanding season at third base. His bat improved, stumbled a little bit in the playoffs, a lot like other Yankee hitters, but still managed a few hits and a couple home runs. Kept us alive in the 9th inning, setting up DJ's home run. So it sounds like a keep, right?
And he also had a big home run himself that game.
Yeah, he did. Martian sightings again. Let's see what he has to say here. Gio earned the third base job moving forward. Maybe allows the Yankees to package a certain second-place Rookie of the Year finisher with a ginger outfielder. Can we say that? Is that offensive?
No.
For pitching. So that's how he feels about that. See if we can get anybody to actually dump them here.
It's going to be very difficult.
Here, TW. Anyone that says dump should never watch baseball again. So
I kind of agree with that. Just because you're not thinking logically.
All right. This one's a lot closer than I thought it would be. Brett Gardner.
He played hard.
Yankees fans, 2,500 votes here, voted to keep Gardy. They want to see the Gardy party in the Bronx one more time.
What was the percentage to keep?
70%.
I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know how many. When did these polls come out? Wednesday?
Yeah.
And when did the Tommy John?
Thursday, I think.
So we got a lot of hits on these the day we released the polls. So I don't think a lot of the TJ news of Hicks getting TJ had much of an effect on them, because I think really the poll
might even shifted it further towards keeping them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying people are going to think that it's that heavily keep because of the Hicks news. I don't think it swayed it that much, though. I think it was just that was the general consensus before that. Where do you stand on Gardy?
I think even before the Hicks news and now after, I'm a keep for Brett Gardner.
I've never been more undecided on any of these polls we've ever done.
I think if you look at it, again, you're gonna now he seems more of a need, but to keep him as a fourth outfielder, insurance type, because again, we're gonna play the same game with Mike Tauchman that we played with Nick Voit last season. Do you believe in what you saw?
Well, this is my thing. It's no disrespect to Tauchman. Like we said, he did a great job. But if you're sitting here saying, we can just let him go, we got Tauchman, that's one thing. I just don't agree with it. If you're saying we can let him go because we're going to give Frazier a real shot here, he's been a guy in our farm system for a while, we want him to get better defensively, he needs to get there, we're going to give him a shot, then I'm okay with letting Gardner go. But my biggest thing is this. If the Yankees won a World Series this year and Gardner still wanted to stick around after the season he had, you know what? Fuck it. Give him the money. Let him play. He had a phenomenal year. But right now I'm to a point where it's just like, you know what? I'm done. I love Gardner, man. And he was someone I hated always. I don't know why. I never liked him. I never thought he utilized his speed enough. But he really turned into just such a great Yankee. And to have the year he did this year, man, I love him for it. But a big part of me right now is kind of like, I'm over it now. I need to move on from this guy. I need to move on from the past. I just need to. I don't know why I feel that way. They didn't win a World Series with him. They were supposed to do it this year, and they didn't.
You gonna blame him for that?
No. I'm just saying it's time to move on. That's how I feel, and I think I feel more strongly about that than I do about keeping him. As much as I love him, and as much as it will kill me to see him in another uniform. I just don't know. Just like talking about Gio, what do you get out of dumping him? I don't know if it makes sense to let him go outside of my last reasoning. Like, if you're telling me that Mike Tauchman is your solution, no, you're signing Gardy then. Because Gardy, I can trust him at least coming off this year. And Tauchman, I don't know, he's going to be way too streaky, and fans are going to expect way too much out of him. And they're going to be disappointed.
Okay, that's how you feel.
I think it all depends on the Yankees' game plan, is what I'm saying.
I think it's more likely today than it was on Wednesday that he stays.
Oh, I think he's going to stay. If you're asking me what I think the Yankees are going to do, I think he absolutely stays. I just don't know how I would handle it.
I'll bring him back for one more year, but this is, I mean, you saw enough out of him that if you limit his at-bats, I think he can still be a very useful piece, especially if you're going to try to keep the DH spot rotating and have Stanton playing left field a little bit more this year. Then, you're going to need somebody to caddy Stanton, and what better guy than Brett Gardner to do it.
Plus, he's a lefty. He's a lefty that hit a lot of home runs this year. So
Sean Bryce says, I say to dump not because he didn't have a good year and isn't a great Yankee. I say due to his age, dump him so it forces them to take a more critical look at Tauchman and Frazier. I do love him, though. I think they're going to do that regardless if Gardner's here or not next year. What? I don't. Tauchman? Yes.
Tauchman, yes. Frazier, no. If Gardy signs, they're pretty much saying Frazier better get traded or he's never playing here. Ever.
John frickin' Barber says the man's wide neck energy is necessary on this team.
You know what? A quick point I want to make, because you said someone was talking about Judge playing center field. That's probably going to be their biggest reason for bringing him back if they do.
He can play center field.
He's a great. I mean, he just didn't skip a beat in the outfield, and he can play center field. You can trust him regardless of if he doesn't come back and have that kind of offensive year. Man, you can really trust this guy in center field.
Let's see. Let's get a good one here. Victoria says he plays hard. He cries a little too much on strikes, but he does have a big heart. So there you go.
For me, it was just like this was Gardy's year to do it again and go out on a high note, and it still would have hurt to see him in another uniform, but they didn't get it done, and maybe it's just time to move on. I don't know.
Maybe it is, but now we.
I'm certainly not going to be mad if they sign him. I will be happy
if they're going to go out there and pick up a fourth outfielder type to sit on the bench and play some defense and play a little center field. Why bring in somebody else? Bring back.
I agree.
All right, last one here. The Yankees' literal red-headed stepchild, Clint Frazier, and this got the least amount of votes of the first 5 polls. I guess nobody cares about Clint Frazier.
I don't think anyone does anymore.
1,800 votes. All the other polls
still scientific.
All the other polls got over 2,100. So nobody likes you, Clint. They don't even care to vote about you.
Yeah.
But the fans did vote 65%. Get the fuck out, Clint.
Yeah. And it's, kind of goes back to Miguel Andujar for me. I mean, this guy just doesn't fit. And it's not even his attitude and the kind of shit he did this year. It's all about the defense, man. It's all about the defense. And If you're sitting here and telling me that this guy has been around this long now, minor leagues or major leagues, I don't care, and still looks this lost in the outfield, that's a problem. That's a big problem for me. I'm definitely dumping.
This is not a rebuilding team anymore. This is a team that needs to go out there and win a World Series.
There's no time for it. There's no time to wait for Frazier.
In his childish games that he plays on social media, I'm done. I'm done. I've been on this show. I've been a big fan of this guy. I've been rooting for him, but you know what? Enough is enough.
Pack your bags and get the fuck out.
He's got a valuable bat, but like we've seen though, the guy, he can't play the outfield. He can't do it for whatever reason. If it's in his head, it's in his head. But go see a shrink in Pittsburgh or Miami or Arizona, somewhere else, just not in the Bronx.
Yep.
And get that shit fixed,
please.
And and then you can come back in interleague and torture us for 2 or 3 games. It's fine. We won't be mad at you. But I don't see it. Even you still got Judge here, you got Stan here, you got Tauchman here. You can even bring back Gardy, you can bring back Cameron Maybin, you can go out there and sign somebody if your heart desires. It can't be. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like with Greg Bird, and we didn't do Greg Bird. Greg Bird's not going to be a guy that we're going to be voting on because I think it's just past the point of caring at this point. But eventually, the ship sails away, and you're left standing on the dock, and it's with Greg Bird, and I feel that way with Clint Frazier now. The ship has left the dock, and it's sailing off into the ocean, and you're just standing there watching.
And it's a fucking shipwreck. That's it.
Here we go with Mark Young. Here, we'll read a couple comments. He's a terrific hitter, but seems supremely immature. Look at the way he handles demotion. Nobody expects him to be happy, but to go on Instagram dramatically unfollowing everyone. What did they do to you? Nothing. Dump him.
Dump him.
Patrick.
Hello, fellas.
This is in response to somebody saying, I want Clint on the team. And Patrick says, want him for what? To carry their luggage? He's shown me nothing to say he deserves a place on this roster. Dump him.
Dump.
All right, let's be a little positive towards Clint.
All right, that's fair.
Quentin Phillips says, I like his bat. We need timely offense. I did see an improvement in his Okay.
No, you didn't.
Get some glasses, dude.
It was so much worse because he was more exposed.
How about let's forget the rest of your comment. How about Big Daddy says, keep him super bat speed. Maybe he's been humbled in the minors this last time down. Defense needs to improve, and the veterans need to teach him the Yankee way.
But here's my problem. His defense doesn't need to improve.
Oh, it does.
It needs to exist.
Yeah, well, that's true, too.
It's not even a matter of improving at this point. It's not like he had a couple tough games. It was every time he was out there. Every time you held your breath for a fucking outfielder. Miguel Andujar can get away with a little more because playing third base at the hot corner, man, there's a lot of tough balls hit at you. But as an outfielder, I'm not saying outfield isn't tough. But on freaking regular, just a pop-up, you held your breath with this guy. And a lot of the times he still failed. That's unacceptable. You can't have that. Not on this team. If you want to deem yourself a championship caliber team, Clint Frazier cannot play that way in the outfield. End of story. And you have no time waiting for him to get better.
0 time. Well, we're looking at the timer here. We already know Joe's interview ran about an hour, which we're going to play right now. We've been on the show here for about 45 minutes, so you're looking at a really long show here today. Yeah. We probably should have thought about this and broke this up into 2 episodes, but we didn't. So,
and thank you to everyone who voted, by the way.
Yes, thank you to everybody
Big turnout
to vote, and we hope for similar, if not bigger, turnout on this coming week here. So thank you for definitely sticking with this long-ass episode here. You guys are awesome, and you're the reason why we keep doing this, so thank you for the support here. So let's just go right into the interview with Joe Rivera of the Sporting News. All right, Chris and Christian of the NYYST podcast on the phone with our good pal Joe Rivera of the Sporting News. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. Joe, how you doing today, pal?
Gentlemen, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, as always. It's always appreciated to be here on the NYY Sports Talk podcast.
I love how we do the whole, like, Joe, how are you, pal? Like, we didn't just bullshit for 10 minutes before we came on.
Yeah, but you have to act...
Like
bullshitting is what I'm really good at. So.
You have to act professional. You can't peel back the curtain too much.
That's the professional thing.
Joe, this is Joe's big magic trick. He's going to act like the biggest Yankee fan in the world right now, and then when he goes on Twitter afterwards, he's going to bury him worse than the Undertaker did to Mankind, like the King of the Ring all those years ago.
I'm going to see what I can do. I can work a little magic, but yeah, I mean, it's not really the end that he fans really wanted. I can't say I'm super surprised, to be honest, but it was kind of painful to watch that CFL, to be honest with you, but. Yeah, no pretending here. No pro-Yankee bias here or anti-Yankee bias. Telling them like it is, friends.
All right, before we actually get into the Yankees, we do have a few managerial maneuvers that came across the waiver wire.
Can I just ask Joe a quick question?
Here we go.
I don't know if, like, because of what you do, like, with the sporting news, whatever, if you like to give out this information, but are you a fan of a certain team? Like,
I'm a fan of chaos.
Who'd you say?
That's what I'm a fan of.
You're a fan of chaos.
I'm a fan of a total and utter chaos in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, he said this
I root for whatever
before.
But I didn't know, like, maybe we weren't as close to Joe at the time and he's given us some answer that he needs to, say on air.
It's like when you're filling out a job application and they ask you the same question 3 different times.
Right.
You have to answer it differently. But no, I'm a fan of chaos, guys. I mean, I just love when the most unexpected thing happens. I mean, who would have thought that the Nationals would get World Series, right? Who would have thought that the Yankees basketball was full as they did? Who would have thought that the Nationals would knock off the Dodgers at 5? I mean, that's the stuff that I really look for as a baseball writer. Because anytime something goes according to plan, that's not really in the spirit of baseball, I guess. But,
so you're rooting for the Orioles to win 100 games next year is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
105, really. 105, but we'll see. I think they have a long, long way to go before that comes to fruition.
All right. Well, now what were we getting to here?
Well,
some
managerial vacancies have been filled. So I believe that you wanted to ask Joe about.
Yeah, Joe. I'm actually glad we had you on this week because it's something I've been thinking about. I'm going to be, just like you were brutally honest just now, I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't follow the Angels at all. Okay, so I don't know what kind of means they have to building a team right now, but from everything I'm seeing, from everything I'm reading, with this hire of Madden, and now, who did I just read could be coming on board as the pitching coach?
No, he's not coming on board. He's on board.
He's on board. Mickey Callaway, right. So, I mean, it looks like this team is trying to start from the top here and work its way down to actually building something around Mike Trout. Am I wrong in saying that? Can it happen? Is it possible?
The number one concern, I guess, with bringing in Joe Madden is that he doesn't pitch, right? And I think that a manager, win or lose you 5 to 10 games during the course of the season. The really good ones will probably win you 7 to 10, and their personality, the team will take on the manager's personality and never panic, or those are the really good managers. The bad ones, like you see with guys that have no real feel of the game, will lose you 5 or 6 games a season. But make no mistake, I think that the Angels are in a much better position than they were 3 to 4 years ago when their farm system was one of the worst in Major League Baseball, if not the worst. A lot of people thought it was like the Moneyball 30 feet of crap or whatever it was, and then the Angels. So their farm system is much, much improved. They have some building blocks now. Griffin Canning pitched pretty well this year for his rookie year. He can be an answer in the rotation, but I think that Joe Madden only masks a little bit of what's going to happen with the Angels. It's a tale as old as time, guys, where the Angels just can't seem to develop quality starting pitching around Mike Trout and really give him the help, because that's where the issues have really been for them. Until they get that solved, until they get starting pitching figured out, the bullpen figured out, then they're going to be going nowhere fast. and it won't really matter who the manager is.
Well, in Philadelphia, they figured that Joe Girardi there is going to make a difference for them. They brought him on board as their manager this week. Do you like the hire for the Phillies, bringing in Joe Girardi?
I think we all know, you guys know as Yankee fans, and me covering the Yankees and covering Major League Baseball in the last few years, is that Joe Girardi knows how to manage a game on a day-in, day-out basis. I think a lot of the question marks surrounding Girardi is how his personality meshes with the team, right? And I think that you saw that 2 years ago in 2017. I made it to the ALCS, but it was very tense. You just got the feeling sometimes you walk into the press conference room and you could cut the tension with the nights after a loss. So I think that we see that a little bit. I think that with a pretty veteran team that they have in Philadelphia now, I mean, they have some young pieces coming up, but that team right now at the Major League level is a pretty veteran squad. So he knows how to manage a game. He has a pretty good feel for the game. I know some of it, too, is how much does he rely on the analytics. Obviously, Matt Klentak and the rest of the Phillies front office there really, really value the analytics and forward thinking. So I think it's a good hire for Philly. I really do. A lot of it depends, again, on what they can do with that pitching rotation and what they can do this offseason with the bullpen. They were dealt a lot of nasty injuries to the bullpen this year, which kind of put people their chances. But at the same time, that past offseason, they didn't really do much to reinforce their rotation. And when Jake Arrieta is aging, I mean, he's on a pretty steady decline right now. And he needs to get Aaron Nola help, and they just haven't done that. So, again, Joe Girardi's a good manager. He's a good hire. I just don't know how much of a difference he makes unless they improve that roster a lot this offseason.
Joe, like Chris said, it's hard to keep track with all 30 Major League Baseball teams, especially when you're so heavily invested in one like we are. Is the general manager in Philadelphia heavily analytics driven?
I was going to ask the same exact question.
Because, you know, what's the buzzword in Major League Baseball now? Collaboration? Is that it? Between the general manager and the analytics staff and the manager. You know that you could say personality all you want, but you almost got the feeling that that's one of the biggest reasons Joe was ousted in New York. Is the GM in Philly, is he less collaborative? Because you almost get the feeling that maybe Joe being one of these, it's hard to call Joe Girardi an old school manager, but because he's not one of these new wave guys that are coming, you know, out of broadcast.
He has an old school personality.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Is he going to give Joe more free reign than some of these other managers are getting in Major League Baseball right now?
Philly's a very, very forward-thinking operation. I think that Klentak last offseason, he made a lot of flashy moves, but not all the moves that really gelled with each other. I mean, obviously Harper was the big one, and signing the cut to the big deal, and his season was cut short with the knee injury. But I think that's kind of putting lip on pig. That's what it was last offseason. So collaboration obviously is a big thing now, and I know that there are a lot of old school folks that kind of like shake their fist at it, say, you know, let the manager have the lineup part. And I think that there's a lot of baseball now that's still, especially in the postseason, we're seeing it now. There's a lot of baseball that's still played by the gut, and managers still manage with their gut. I think that A.J. Hinch is probably among the best in baseball at that right now. You saw that with Urquidy last night. He was dealing, and I'm sure that some of the analytics would say, don't let him pitch this deep into the game with his pitch count up and this and that. So I'm sure that was his stomach played a little bit into it there. But again, with Philly, I think that, you know, the relationship between Girardi and Klentak is crucial. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. I think that when you hire a guy like Girardi, you're kind of saying, you know, take this team and mold it the way you see fit, play it the way you see fit. But there's always going to be the analytics department that's going to be right behind him. There's always going to be the GM who molds the image of his team in his vision. So trying to push the right buttons at the same time. So again, that relationship between Girardi and Klentak is critical. I think that they kind of know what they're getting into right now with Girardi. So we're going to see how it's going to play out.
I was going to ask the same question as Christian and kind of take it down the same path, because you're not hiring Girardi unless you know the kind of guy you're getting. I mean, at this point, you know who Joe Girardi is. You know the way he's going to want to manage. And guess what? He is an analytical guy, so it can work. But for me, I think the whole collaboration thing comes into play the most when look, we all know Aaron Boone has done a great job here. But because the Yankees are so analytically driven, they have these strategies going into every single game. His biggest job seems to be getting the most out of his players by keeping a good culture in that clubhouse. Joe Girardi might not be the man for the job in that sense, but if you're going to give him that power to run with this team and trust that he's also an analytical guy, I think Joe Girardi can be successful anywhere if you're going to give him that type of control.
Yeah, and I think that, guys like Girardi are kind of going by the wayside, right? And I think that you're seeing more first-time guys, which I don't really have a problem with, because when you look at managers across Major League Baseball, you never know who's going to be a good manager until you hire a first-time guy, right? And I know that a lot of these hires are outside the box. Obviously, Aaron Boone is the poster child for that. Dave Tapper was another one who was just ousted in Philly, but again, with a veteran team like Philadelphia, who knows the window is right now with some of these guys that they have, and the next slew of guys in their farm system won't really be around for another 3 or 4 years. I think that they understand that this is, when you hire a guy like Girardi, he's the guy that's going to get the most out of what you have right now. So, again, they know what they're getting into with him. I don't think there's really a question of culture happening in Philadelphia. You really didn't hear nothing kind of fracturing. I don't really think that's big of a deal, but you know what you're getting with Girardi when you hire him as manager. And I think that it's a smart move for Philly, and they know what they're doing. But again, the window's now, and they're going to have to figure it out soon.
Well, what are the Mets figuring out? Because they still don't have a manager. You hear a couple names, Tim Bogar, maybe Eduardo Perez seem to be the favorites. You listen to enough sports talk radio, you're on social media enough, you almost got the sense that the fan base was almost united in wanting Joe Girardi as their next manager. It didn't seem like Brody Van Wagenen shared that sentiment, or else maybe Joe would be here in the Queens instead of over in Philadelphia. Two parts here. Do you think it was a mistake on Brody's part to not bring in Joe, and where do you see the Mets ultimately going for a new manager?
I got to be honest, guys. I do think it was a mistake, because while the Mets are building a very good young core, obviously with Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, he's a little bit older, but he's still part of that core. Michael Conforto, Dom Smith, we'll see what happens with him. All very good position players. Ahmed Rosario. I mean, they're very talented when it comes to like young position players there. But the question is the pitching, and Marcus Stroman's up after next season. Who knows what happens with Noah Syndergaard? So I'm really curious to see, and we all know how hard it is to find a rotation and build a rotation in Major League Baseball. So this next manager is absolutely crucial, and that's why I really thought that hiring Girardi was kind of a slam dunk, because, again, he's a guy that knows what he's doing. He knows how to build a team, how he's going to attack other teams on a game-by-game basis. He knows what he's doing as manager on game day. So, honestly, I don't know what the Mets are doing. I don't know what they're thinking, really kind of risking this window with an unproven guy. It could work out. Nobody really knows, right? If they do end up hiring an Eduardo Perez or Tim Bogar or Derek Sheldon, I mean, it could work out. We don't know.
Is Jerry Seinfeld a serious candidate, Joe?
Jerry Seinfeld? He
would certainly fit. He would certainly fit the bombshell report that was out there, right? About a potential Mets manager candidate, potential bombshell hiring, along with, I think, Mike Francesa might be up there. The Naked Cowboys got a pretty good shot, I'd say, too. I think that would be a pretty bombshell candidate, really. I don't know where the Mets are going. It appears that they're going to go with that first-time manager thing, and if you're going to go that direction, then why not go with a guy like Carlos Beltran, who's very, very respected around baseball, not one of these guys who, you know what, they were good managers like Tim Bogar here in the minors a few times. So really, Brody really wants to stop.
Sure, okay.
He sucks as an artist, though, Joe.
Actually, I don't. That's one thing you're false. That's a false accusation there, because it's one thing I'm decent at.
The one thing.
I'm going to paint you a little picture. You ever go to Hot Grill in Clifton?
You sorry, can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I heard this.
Have you ever been to Hot Grill in Clifton?
I have not, no.
Wow. Okay. Well, A, you should go. And B, here's where I'm going to paint my picture. I'm standing there. My wife is pregnant. She wanted Hot Grill. I almost said no and almost got a divorce. So I drove her to Hot Grill, and I'm waiting online, and I'm reading all these articles about Perez, and I'm just going, you know what? And I don't get fresh. I don't look at this. I don't read this as like a Yankee homer and bias and whatever and hate on the Mets. I actually empathize with their fan base because I'm reading this stuff, and I thought the same exact thing as you. I'm like, if you're going to go with a first-time guy, why wouldn't you go with a guy who's well-loved like Carlos Beltran around the league? And I know Beltran and the Wilpons really didn't have the best history, but, I mean, he got an interview. He's got to be a serious candidate. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just ripping them, right? And then I'm waiting longer for my order than I expected. So now my brain shifts into, well, you know what? You know, the Yankees hired Boone, and you know, we didn't know how that was going to turn out. If they hire Perez, maybe it'll work out. But then I had to rationalize and say, but there's one big difference. I mean, the Mets had guys at their fingertips that they were interviewing that they probably could have hired that had the experience, that have the track record of being a successful manager. Did the Yankees, and I can't think back, did the Yankees really interview anyone that
Eric Wedge was
Eric Wedge,
I believe he was the only guy with any type of experience.
I'm talking, and again, I understand this day and age, Girardi getting along with Brody, and it might not have worked out. But, I mean, come on, let it play out at that point, because what are you doing to your fan base not hiring the best candidate at this point when you haven't spent money in forever? You got to hire the best guy. And if Joe Girardi was a serious candidate, you got to hire him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you know what, guys, whether it was Girardi or Buck Showalter, I understand Buck gets a lot of flack now. You know, I understand Buck gets a lot of flack. You know, it kind of feels like he's a lot of people kind of paint him as the scapegoat for, you know, old school baseball, which couldn't be more false, because Buck has said numerous times in the past that the way the baseball is going is analytics, and he understands how to use them and how to approach it. And I think we saw that with the Orioles. He got his biggest run, his longest run with the Orioles. He had some players there, and unfortunately, he was a casualty of a rudderless ship of an organization that just didn't know what direction it was going in. So, you know, when you have, let's not make a mistake, guys. I mean, New York City, I think the Wilpons have money. They just don't want to spend. They're in the largest media market in the world. They have their own network. They have revenue coming in. Fans come to the stadium, so it's not like they're broke. They're really not. And to hire a manager who could be the difference between, you know, a cute 90-win season where there's ups and downs, and potentially an 100-win season and get to a World Series and be serious. But I don't really think you can really cut corners when it comes to that. So, and I don't know what the Mets are doing. It seems like every time there's an obvious decision to go in the opposite direction, and that's certainly continued. Depending on the hire again, it'd be unfair to paint the new hire, whoever it is, the failure. And actually have to see what they do, but it certainly seems like hiring a proven guy would have been a smart, logical decision.
Because, Joe, let me ask you this, right? Let's say they hire Perez or whoever else not named Beltran, Joe Girardi, or Buck Showalter. They have a failure of a season next year, right? What is every single fan saying? What's the one sentence that's coming out of their mouth?
Why didn't we hire, you know, whoever else?
Joe Girardi, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be everyone's
why didn't
question.
We hire Girardi?
But if you hire Joe Girardi and it doesn't work out, is anyone blaming the Mets at that point?
Exactly. And I think part of the problem, guys, is compounded because Girardi goes to an NL East rival. So you're going to be seeing them 18 or 19 times a year. And should the Mets even split games with the Phillies this year, which I think the Phillies are a good team. I don't think they're that much better than the Mets in 2020. I mean, we saw this year they weren't that much better than the Mets. They weren't better than the Mets at all by record. But, I just don't know. Again, I don't know what the thought process is. Maybe Brody just wants control over the game by game, the daily operation. It's a very, very big, heavy risk to pay. It just doesn't make a lot of sense when this is your chance, this is your opportunity to try and win a World Series, and you can't keep wasting these guys' career. We know that they don't really like to spend. I mean, they spend money, but they don't like to spend it on a year basis to try and improve things. They try and take easy, cheap ways around things. We saw that with the Cano and Diaz deal. So I don't know what they're really doing to try and help them win a World Series this upcoming year. We need to see them spend this offseason. We need to see them hire a guy that they feel confident in. It's just not going to be a lapdog.
Well, speaking of winning World Series, the winningest team, I guess, over the last 15 years has been the Boston Red Sox. They've got, 4 World Series in that time span?
I believe so.
And they brought in Dave Dombrowski a few years ago to do what Dave Dombrowski does, and that's win at all costs. He gutted the farm system, spent a ton of money, but, hey, the Red Sox got a title out of it last year. And then he gets fired for basically doing what he was hired to do. And now the Red Sox, and, I'm not breaking any news here. I'm not Jewish. But so I don't want to butcher this. But Chaim Bloom, the wonderkin down in Tampa, is now.
It's Jaime.
It's not. Yeah. So now you just butchered it on purpose.
I was thinking of Jaime Garcia. That's
anyway, Bloom, wonderkin down in Tampa, was apparently the runner-up to Brody in the Mets search for GM last year. But his whole idea with the Mets was, hey, I want to rebuild this team, where Brody was telling the Wilpons, no, we can win this year. And obviously that won out.
Sold him on a pipe dream.
That won out over what Bloom was pitching. Is Bloom a guy that's going into Boston pitching a rebuild to the Red Sox right now?
Guys, there's 2 ways that you can kind of look at this, right? You can look at it as Chaim Bloom is the guy that made the most out of nothing in Tampa for the most part, at least in way of payroll. He knew how to build a franchise based on a certain very specific set of statistics that they use down in Tampa that almost nobody else uses, and analytics and stats and all that stuff. And that going to Boston, he'll have the resources and the money to kind of figure that out. And however good you think Tampa was this year, 95 win team, that's kind of scary to think about, taking his eye for talent and his eye for statistics and analytics and putting in Boston, where they're obviously not afraid to make money. On the other side, you can look at it as Bloom is the guy that knows how to win without spending that much money. So maybe Boston, who wanted to shed payroll last offseason and they're entering a state of, we really don't want to spend that much money right now. We want to try and trade guys off or hope JD Martinez opts out to bring the payroll down, and Bloom might be the best guy to do that. So it's a very un-Boston-like thing to do. Depending on what way you want to look at it, it could either be a slam dunk or a colossal failure. I don't think Bloom is a bad hire at all, but considering this is the Boston Red Sox, and they are a team that again, they spend money. They're not afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to make a splash. A lot of that was under Dombrowski, but I think Bloom is a good hire for them. I think that get in Boston's resources over Tampa, it's going to make a lot of sense. And I think that, again, you look at the Mets, and the Mets are a team that weren't afraid to win, and they clearly were ready to win this past offseason. It just didn't work out in their favor, and they went through too many malaise throughout the years. So it felt like they were due for a full rebuild. I don't think that's the case, but Boston, I think that they want to shed some money, and Bloom might be the best guy to shed that money and still put a competitive team on the field moving forward.
When did he leave Tampa?
Just now.
Bloom? Just this past offseason.
He was through this season. Okay.
Yes, he was.
Wow.
Joe, they're not really going to trade Mookie Betts, are they? I mean, that would be absolutely ridiculous. And look, I'm not going to sit there and cheer for anything that's going to make Boston better, but I mean, come on now. The guy's the face of your franchise, and because he's going to get paid now, you're going to move him? That doesn't sound like something that the Red Sox usually do. It would be like the Yankees looking to move Aaron Judge the year before free agency because they don't want to pay him.
If they're going to do that, why didn't they like re-sign Kimbrel or anything like that? Why did they let all this money just go and then you're just going to trade Betts? Is that really being?
A lot of it is because they signed Bogarts to that extension. They signed Sale to that extension. And maybe Red Sox front office board wasn't really happy with the way that the shit out that now Betts is an unfortunate casualty of what they're going to do moving forward. So I don't think it's particularly wise. I mean, when Betts is on, he's a top 5 player in Major League Baseball. We saw last season that he's up there with Mike Trout. Talent-wise, I don't think it would be wise for Boston to trade Betts. I mean, you're going to need fans to come to the stadium, and Andrew Benintendi's a good player, no doubt, and Xander Bogaerts had a really good season this year, and Rafael Devers is very good, but you don't really trade star players unless you get a franchise-altering deal back. So I wouldn't do it if I were Boston. You just don't find guys like that on the street. Top 5 players, they're very hard to come by. Game-changing players, hard to come by. So if I'm a Boston fan, I'm really hoping he'll do it. But if you're Boston and you're kind of saddled with some of these deals that might not work out over the next few years, it might be trading. It might be a necessary casualty. Unfortunately.
Oh, that's really unfortunate for them. I'm going to go cry about it later. Let's move on real quick to the World Series here. It's now tied up 2-2. Games 1 and 2, Washington goes down there, beats Cole and Verlander. They come home. Now you're thinking, wow, could it be a possible sweep, maybe over in 5? And then Houston comes back, wins the next 2. I guess this is a case of, you can't predict baseball, Susan, type of deal here, where who's expecting Washington to go down there and beat their 2 aces and then come home and lose the next 2? Has this year, now that this series is tied up, this, in my opinion, this pretty much goes in the favor of the Astros because you're not really expecting Cole and Verlander to go out there and pitch poorly or subpar in their next outings, and then they still have 2 more games at home. What's your thoughts on the way this World Series is shaped up and how it's going to move forward here?
Washington really got to play its offense fast, right? They only scored 2 runs in their 2 games at home, and anytime you kind of squander a 2-game lead heading back home, I mean, that's bad news, right? Momentum is squarely in the corner of the Astros now. I know they say that momentum is your next day starting pitcher, but when you have Max Scherzer and Garrett Cole going again today for Washington and Houston respectively, I think that maybe the momentum from previous games play into it a little bit more. I've said this whole time, Houston and 6. I still feel that way. I understand how we got here is a little bit different than maybe what we expected. I think that Houston probably will lose tonight at home in Washington against Scherzer, and then probably finish the people over the next year. So, I really don't know, man. I don't know. It's tough for me. It's tough for me to see how Washington can really upend a team as deep as Houston. It just doesn't make sense to me. They're just too good. They're too deep. Their bullpen has performed. Even when they got subpar performances from Zach Greinke and Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, they found ways to win. So their offense obviously is too good. They have MVP-type talent, and everybody's going right. They have 5 guys that could beat in the park for MVPs when they're healthy and right. So it's tough for me to see how Washington can upend Houston these next 2 games. It really is. I just don't see how I'm sorry, I said before, I don't know how Houston will win tonight, but I think that they can probably pull it off tonight and then go back home and finish it out at home in Game 6.
Joe, before the start of Game 3, and I thought I was just kind of being, an idiot doing this, but I was feeling it, and I was just like, you know what? I just have the Astros pulling a 96 Yankees here, and before the start of Game 3, I tweeted it out that I really felt, as crazy as it sounded, that the Astros were going to win it in 6 and win the next 4. And then all of a sudden they come out and they look like the Astros again, but there's one guy that's standing out to me. Seriously, and I'm sure other people not looking as closely at each series wouldn't agree with me, but the one guy who's been the biggest difference maker for the Houston Astros, if you go back to every single big moment that they've gotten through and won the game, it's been Will Harris. Is this guy a good pick? Like, it just blows my mind every time he comes in that he's getting out of these jams. He has been unbelievable.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, guys, a lot of people, myself included, I'm not trying to say I was the only one that thought this, but a lot of people had Houston's bullpen as kind of a weakness entering the playoffs, right? And that hasn't really played out. They've been every corner they've turned when they've needed to get big outs. Last night included an ALCS Game 6 when they threw a bullpen game. I mean, they've just been spectacular, and Harris among them. Obviously, Joe Smith has been very good too. Josh James has been very good.
James, yeah.
It's unbelievable to see that. The same thing kind of happened with Boston last year, right? Where you said, their bullpen's not that good. You can feast on their bullpen, but then you get to the playoffs and everything changes. So, Harris obviously among them. Osuna's been pretty good, aside from that home run he gave up in the ALCS Game 6. But they're all of them. The relief corps for Houston as a whole has been really, really good, and surprisingly good, I would say, in the World Series.
Well, hopefully, for the Yankees' sake, they can wrestle away Garrett Cole in the offseason so Houston doesn't have him. I mean, that's one key component to bringing in Cole here. But, yeah, a lot of what you hear is that Cole might be, wanting to go play on the West Coast. This goes back to what you were saying about the Angels earlier about getting top-flight starting pitching. That apparently he played baseball 10 miles from where the Angels play, and that's a likely, a hopeful destination for him. We know that Brian Cashman loves Garrett Cole. He drafted him, and then the kid went to go to college, which, I don't agree with because baseball, college. I mean,
absolutely.
Come on now.
Kids, if you're listening.
Play baseball.
Play baseball. It's way more important than college.
And then he tried to trade for him the same offseason that Houston ended up getting him. It didn't work out for the Yankees. Now, third time a charm here, where all that's standing in the way of Cole to the Yankees is money. And we know the famous story about CC Sabathia didn't want anything to do with New York. Brian Cashman put on the full court press, threw a whole bunch of money at CC. CC came here, won a World Series, beloved by the fan base. Is Garrett Cole? I mean, how realistic is Garrett Cole to the Yankees for 2020?
It's as realistic as how Steinbrenner wants to be. I think that at the end of the day, the Yankees just haven't been willing to spend as much money on starting pitching, and maybe that's because they've been burned in the past. CC obviously worked out well, but A.J. Burnett really didn't. Paul Romano, obviously, Jared Wright. You want to go back that far?
Wait, hold on. Can I leave for this section of the show if you're going to go all the way back to Jared Wright? How about what was the other loser? Javi Vasquez. He was a great.
Javi Vasquez
that was a two-time
another one where
loser.
they traded for him twice. I want to say They traded for him once, and then they traded Melky Cabrera for him. Both times it didn't really work out.
Yeah.
So. Maybe it's fear on the Yankees' part that they don't want to dive deep into these contracts and really spend a lot of money. But again, I think that when you look at what happened this offseason, I know a lot of fans will say it's not the reason that the Yankees lost, and I would agree. Starting pitching isn't the reason that the Yankees lost at all. But I will say, when you have an ace on the mound in October, it makes that much of a difference, right? And we're seeing that now. Look at 4 guys that are in the postseason right now. You look at Max Scherzer, who the Yankees could have signed that they didn't because of the payroll limitations. You look at Justin Verlander, who the Yankees could have had. He was one of the 4 teams that he would have waived his no trade clause for, but he did not because the Yankees didn't want to bring in that money. You look at Patrick Corbin, who's the guy that the Yankees could have signed past offseason, and they passed on him. I mean, semantics, you want to argue Sweeney Murray and Brian Cashman semantics all you want, but the truth is they didn't up their offer after Washington did. And then you look at Garrett Cole, a guy that they could have had a few times, but they just didn't want to bring him on for either fear of pending free agency or prospect that they would have given up. So I don't know. And those are 4 guys that are pitching in the World Series, by the way. So I don't really know what the holdup would be if you're the Yankees wanting to sign a guy like Garrett Cole. He's a bona fide ace. You see, even when he's struggling, he gets through battles. He's done amazing stuff, obviously. He's been light years better than what anybody would have expected in Houston. Because when you look at his career before Houston, he was very good, but he wasn't dominant like he is in Houston. So the likelihood of Gerrit Cole being a Yankee is as likely as whatever Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman want to pay him, because I think that they need him. Absolutely. You can't, if you're Brian Cashman, put a ball on this. If you're Brian Cashman, you can't play the 7 outfielders game like you did last season when you say, oh, we have 7 outfielders, and, you know, one of them is Jacoby Ellsbury. You can't say we have 7 starters, but say, well, Domingo Germán, who's been bad since July and hurt, or Jordan Montgomery, who's coming off Tommy John surgery.
I don't want to hear Jordan Montgomery's name as a reason why Gerrit Cole is not a Yankee. I can't accept that.
You know what, guys? I wouldn't be surprised if that's the spin that they put on it. I really wouldn't be, because Cashman has always been very open.
Well, you're talking about McDonald's hamburgers versus going to a top flight steakhouse and getting yourself a porterhouse. That's the difference between Gerrit Cole and Jordan Montgomery. Yeah, Jordan Montgomery is serviceable. He'll get you through the day, but at the end of the day, you want the big time ace on the mound. Look, I've said it. I don't think that pitching was the reason why the Yankees lost this series. But if they would have gotten to Game 7, it would have been the reason why they would have lost the series, because they had nowhere to. Joe, if they somehow pulled out Game 6, they had nowhere to go in Game 7. Nowhere.
Yeah.
Sevy would have given them, 4 innings, and their bullpen was gassed in Game 6.
Yeah, and that's the that's where you start to get into the debate about bullpens, right? And a lot of people argued about the merits of bullpenning in the postseason, and obviously it worked this season for the Yankees. But at the end of the day, when Zach Britton and Chad Green and Tommy Kahnle are all dispelling the importance of a bullpen and saying that they were gassed come the postseason, I think we see that strategy might not be one that you can really lean on come October. So. I don't know where they would have gotten Game 7 had they pulled out Game 6. It would have been mixed and match all game. Starter wouldn't have been able to use any length whatsoever, and I just don't see how signing Gerrit Cole would be a negative for anybody. You know, anytime you have the opportunity to bring in top flight talent, you have to do it as an organization. You just owe it to yourselves as a team, and owe it to your fans to show that you're trying. So. If the Yankees do this again, and I put this out on Twitter about a month ago, if the Yankees go out and they wine and dine Gerrit Cole, they put him in the queue for shop, but then they offer him 4 years at $120 million, that's not going to get it done, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they again pass on him this offseason, and make no mistake, it would be a pass. Don't get caught up into the semantics. The Yankees have the money to spend, so I wouldn't be surprised if they pass on him this offseason, but I really do think that he's a pitcher that the Yankees really desperately need.
Joe, I could be completely off base on this, and I'm not even saying that you would know if I'm anywhere near, accurate. But I'd like to know your take, because I think that Cashman and the Yankees go into every single deal that's on the table with, just like every single game they play, an outline. They're so analytically driven that they put a price tag on every single one of these guys before Cashman picks up the phone. And just like you, right? You're a writer. You work with the Sporting News. If you were a freelancer at this point, you'd put a value on yourself, right? You would go out there and know what you wanted for, say, every article you did, and you'd have a high point and a low point. And you'd hope to, meet somewhere in the middle. Cashman goes in with this set number. All these other teams are going through the roof because they're the New York Yankees. And these guys' numbers at the time of them being available, they're just not adding up to what the value is that these other teams are putting on them at the time. I don't blame Brian Cashman for saying no to Patrick Corbin. Look at Patrick Corbin's numbers. But just like in the game, when you need to use your gut a little more than you do the analytics, I think some of these guys need to start being looked at this way. Christian says it all the time. You take Verlander out of Detroit, right? Where he looks washed up. But what team was he playing on? I mean, he had nothing. He had nothing motivating him at that point. Bring him to Houston, he looks better than he ever has. Cashman needs to put down the analytics a little bit, I think, when it comes to getting these guys now, too, and what their value is. Because Patrick Corbin, even Gerrit Cole back when they could have traded for him, Look at that season he was coming off of. He's not worth all those top guys that Pittsburgh wanted. But maybe he was, right? Maybe you look at a little deeper and say, if he comes to New York, he can be worth that. Maybe it's too much of putting values on these guys.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair, Chris. And I have to be honest, I think that when the Yankees kind of won 2016, right, when they made all their trades and brought in all that top-flight talent, I think that it got in their heads a little bit. And then they said, you know what, we can win every trade. But that's just not the way it works. It's not the way it works in baseball. Sometimes you have to sign a guy when you know those years, six or seven in his contract are going to really suck. I mean, that's just the nature of baseball sometimes. Especially if he's a guy that's going to help you win in the immediate. So, excuse me, I think that when you look at a guy like Gerrit Cole again and you say, you know what, he's a guy that's going to help us, he's going to take us to the next level in 2020, he could be the difference between us winning a World Series or not. You have to do it. You have to put away that plan. You have to say, we're going to have to blow by our contract office because we desperately need this guy. Sometimes you have to set records as a general manager. I mean, someone's going to do it, right? Someone's going to do it for Gerrit Cole this offseason when he's a free agent. Somebody's going to pay this guy more than anybody ever imagined, and you know what? He's going to be money for whoever signs him. So you can't be afraid of what's going to happen 6 or 7 years down the line. And CC Sabathia, right? I mean, a lot of people are kind of scoffing at the money that he made with the Yankees when he signed with them, but he helped them win a World Series, and he's been a leader for that team for the last 8 years. So I don't know, guys. I really think that you have to, if you're Brian Cashman, you have to go in this. You have to go full steam ahead. You can't come away this offseason with a middling starter and with some bullpen help and say we're much improved because they could be better. They could be better next year than they were this year. But is that going to be the difference between just making the postseason and being competitive in the postseason and winning a World Series? No.
You just shouldn't let it be even a discussion. You shouldn't let starting pitching even be a factor of the discussion if you fall short again next year. It just shouldn't happen. There's too many guys on the table now, and there's absolutely no excuse. Absolutely no excuse.
Yeah, I agree. If you're a Yankee fan, that's the way you have to look at it. And I know that Twitter and the internet in general has really just given a voice to fans who want to think along with the general manager, and they try and rationalize these deals. And you know what? It's just money at the end of the day. And I understand you're paying, $250 for a ticket and another $40 for parking, another $50 for food, and whatever. At the end of the day, you're spending $700-800 for a family of four, right? That's a lot of money.
I spend $150 before I even sit in my $10 bleacher seats. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I understand that hurts for a lot of fans because you see the correlation between, maybe they're spending too much money because my ticket's too expensive. No, because if you want to see a winning product, then you're going to root for your team to spend as much money as possible to put it on the field, regardless of how much a ticket costs. Because if fans are going to point to, well, I'm paying all this money for the ticket, and then Gerrit Cole isn't signed, then what are you really paying for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I said this last week, and I got it from Mike Francesa because he made a great point.
Okay.
Do you want to be everybody else in Major League Baseball where winning 100 games is something that you throw a parade for, or do you actually want to be the New York Yankees and go out there and win championships every year and have the rest of the league and everybody else's fan base is jealous of you? Yeah, okay, it's fun. We won 100 games last year, 103 games this year, but there's no rings, there's no parades. This is the off season now. It's time to go back to being the Yankees. It's just, it is. Yeah. There's no more excuses now. You got a guy like Gerrit Cole out there that is the real missing piece. If you, listen, Luis Severino, Masahiro Tanaka, and James Paxton, if you put Gerrit Cole in front of that.
Forget it.
With the bullpen and lineup this team has, they have to be the favorites going into the 2020 season.
And listen, too, because me and Christian talked about this, and Stat Guy Rye, he's not here, not feeling well today. We talked about this last episode, right? That 2019 was the year promised to all Yankee fans. And it was, it was an easy ride. It was an easy wait because this team was, quote unquote, rebuilding. And they really didn't rebuild anything. I mean, they were in the ALCS Game 7 the very next year. Had a great run last year. Fell short to an extremely talented Boston Red Sox team in the ALDS. And now they're back in the ALCS this year. But when you've promised a fan base, you're owner of your team, and you know, Brian Cashman promised in Hal that 2019 was the season. When he has this plan in place, you know, you might question him, but you know what? You're trusting him because he keeps telling you 2019, 2019. Guess what? 2019 didn't happen. So Christian went right at him last episode, and he's like, you know what? They don't do it in 2020. I'm starting to ask questions about Cashman at this point because, okay, this has all been fun and great, and the Yankees have, you know, become a little more scrappy and got guys like DJ LeMahieu, which was great, and Luke Voigt they found out of the woodworks. But now you didn't do it. You didn't do it in the time frame you gave us. We didn't ask you to put a time frame on it. You did that. You didn't do it. So now it's time to be the New York Yankees again. It's time to go out and hand Garrett Cole a blank check.
Yeah, that's totally fair, guy. And you know what? You're well within your right to feel that way. And I think that baseball has found a way through media and through teams and through payroll mandates and all these different ways where they keep selling you on hope, right? They keep selling you on next year will be the year. We'll have prospects. We're making this trade to tear down our team, but we're getting these A-ball, double A-ball guys who are going to be pieces of our future. They found ways to tell you, well, the Yankees, you know, well, our goal is to get underneath the luxury tax. Well, you'd assume that the goal is to get under the luxury tax so they can blow by it again and they can really get money in there and find guys that are going to help you win a World Series, right? I think that is kind of like the silent agreement that, you know what, maybe we're going to be lean. We're not going to sign guys so we can sign them later. And that hasn't been the case. So as fans, you have to start asking those questions. I don't think that's unfair to ask. And this is not just a Yankee thing. This is a baseball-wide thing. How many years have the Pirates been rebuilding? Tampa Bay consistently puts on a really good team on the field, but when you're not really spending the money to improve your team, you know, when are you going to start asking those questions? You know, Texas is moving into a new stadium, and they haven't really done much in recent years to try and improve their squad. So I think that as a fan, you're well within your right to be angry if the team doesn't spend money. There's nothing wrong with that. And I know baseball has found a way to try and condition fans to saying, you know, well, if spending money is bad. You know, that's fairly untrue. These guys are all billionaires. They have the money to spend. So don't be afraid to start asking questions and asking how much your team is committed to winning. And don't point to, well, we have this prospect and we have this young player. No, that's where asking guys are getting the improvement. I think that's only fair, and I think that's also your right as a fan.
All right, Joe. So we're going to let you go on this. This is the first episode of our Keep 'em and Dump 'em segments that we do.
Third year doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, these come earlier than we'd like to do them, but, you know, that's just the cards we've been dealt here. We got 5 guys here. I don't know if you saw the names on Twitter or not, but I didn't want to give them to you because I want your quick gut reaction.
And we do 15 total, by the way. These are our first 5.
Yeah, these are the ones we're going to discuss between us after we let you go here. It's not, you know, I try to spell this out for the fans on Twitter. It's not if you can trade a guy. It's would you trade a guy? This is you, Joe Rivera, as the GM of the Yankees. If you can pull the trigger, get rid of this guy, would you get rid of him?
We try and do, what's the word you used? Polarizing guys.
Yeah, you know hot button guys, that we hear a lot of complaining about. Or guys that are indeed pending free agents. So I'm gonna throw the names out there. Quick gut reaction. Give me like 1 or 2 sentences on why you feel that way. You ready?
You got it. Let's go for it.
All right. Number 1, Giancarlo Stanton.
Keep him because he's a former NL MVP. Team's game plan around him. And before he was hurt, he was having some pretty good at-bats. He had a good eye this offseason. And asking the guy to come back from injury and to produce in the postseason when you're facing really good pitching is tough for anybody to do. So I think you keep him.
All right, Miguel Andujar.
It's tough, but I would say dump him. Trade him if you can. And I felt that way before this season. I think that he won't be able to replicate his offensive success. He's not a guy that's going to work at bats and work walks, which is what the Yankees really value. And defensively, he didn't really look much better in the limited time that he played this year, and that was with a full offseason. So when you look at his rookie campaign, he cost the team almost 2 wins, or over 2 wins, just on defense alone. So however good his stat was, when you go by the analytics, the defense was just the opposite, the polar opposite. So if you can trade him and get a starting pitcher or get something of value for him, I think you do it.
All right, Gio Urshela.
Keep him because I really don't know what your other options are at the moment. You don't really have a guy that can play third unless you want to move LeMahieu over there, and I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that his glove really plays. I know that his range might not be what everybody expects it to be. His analytics are a little bit under what league average is, but his glove certainly plays, his arm certainly plays, and if this season is any indication, then his bat certainly plays. So we'll see how it works. But I keep him.
I wanted to ask you that real quick. Do you think it's an aberration or what he is going forward with the bat and going for Gio Urshela?
You know, if it were an aberration, guys, I think that you would have seen cracks midway through the season, but that just never happened, right? The slowdown never came. So if he figured something out with his swing, if he really worked on it, I mean, I think it's here to stay. I don't really, until you see otherwise. Kind of like with Luke Boyd, right? Until you see otherwise, it's kind of so hard to say, yeah, we're not believing in this. Yeah. So I think you keep him. I think he's legitimate.
All right, this next one, I'm going to ask you two ways. I'm going to first ask you as if it was being asked before Aaron Hicks. It came out that he was getting Tommy John surgery. Brett Gardner, keep him or dump him?
I think you dump him.
Dump him.
I really do.
Pre-Hicks. Now, what about post-Hicks?
You know, it depends on the price that you get him at. He had a really good year this year. He had a 4-win season this year. He had 28 home runs this year, but, you know, everybody across baseball was setting career highs, right? Home runs. I mean, he's not the only one, but I still think you dump him. I really do, because at this point, if the Yankees aren't going to trade Clint Frazier, then you're going to have to play him. And I don't think Giancarlo Stanton is going to play 140, 150 games in left field. I just don't see that, not with the way his legs broke down this year and the injuries that he had. So I still think you dump him, because I think that part of why Cashman re-signed him was to try and get him one last spring before he was gone. And the same thing with CeCe. But I just don't think you can. I don't think you can keep him for another year, especially if they're going to be cheap and they're not going to spend money elsewhere. I think that you try and take whatever you're making from his contract and reallocate it somewhere else.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him, because the last guy we're going to bring up today is Clint Frazier.
I think you keep him because until Estevan Florial proves that he can be a major leaguer, and he hasn't done that at all, I think that you don't really have many outfield options in the minor leagues. You're not going to spend more money on an outfielder this offseason. It's just not going to happen. And I do think that his bat plays, and I think part of why he was victimized at the major league level was because they kept moving him around. Let's not forget, he came up as a center fielder with the Indians. He was actually pretty good defensively as a center fielder. The Yankees moved him to left, and they were playing him right this year, and it just didn't work out for him. So I think his bat plays, I really do. You saw that at the beginning of the year, and I think that he's a young, controllable outfielder. And unless you get a really good trade offer from someone else for him, I think you hold out to him, at least for one more year.
All right, Joe, we can't thank you enough. Nearly an hour here spending with us talking about a variety of different topics, the managerial vacancies, the World Series, of course, the Yankees. Joe, thank you as always. Follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN, and we'll definitely touch base probably before the holidays, come hot stove time.
Hot stove, baby. Joe, you're the man.
Oh, thanks for having me on. And hey, I'm still waiting for that invite to your fancy studio.
It actually got delayed at least 2 years now because of the negative Yankee tweets I've seen out there. So when we start shaping that up, we will get closer to sending out an invite.
Oh, must be to know if you guys wedding invite. So I guess I'll wait for that. Don't worry.
All right, pal.
All right, Joe. Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Man. You got it. Thank you.
All right,
Joe
that was
Riv.
Joe Riv. Thank you, Joe. Again, nearly an hour here. Joe's always great with that, and being able to go around the league with him. So what did he just said? Andujar, right? Was Andujar and Gardy were the only guys that he's going to dump?
Yeah, I'm actually shocked he was so quick to dump Gardy. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought he'd have two different answers, to be honest. I thought pre-Hicks, Tommy John announcement, he would have been a dump. But I thought after, what else is really? I mean, we're talking about a guy who hit almost 30 home runs. We're not talking about Brett Gardner
juiced balls,
batting 180 and hitting 9 home runs this past year. It's still Brett Gardner at that point, but
So you're saying Joe's not entitled to his opinion?
No, he is absolutely not entitled.
Right. Okay, well, there you go. All right, so that'll wrap up episode 149, week 1 of the Keep 'em Dump 'ems. We'll be back next week, episode 150, with the second round of the Keep 'em Dump 'em. So
can you believe we're at episode 150?
Yes,
That's
I can
insane.
because we did episode 100 like in February. I'm really surprised we only did 50 in this time span.
Crazy.
All right, so thank you for listening. Chris is going to run over and send Stack Guy Rice some chicken noodle soup so he feels better for next week. Again, thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at NYY Sports Talk. Teddy Bear? We haven't taught it out to speak yet. Chris, say goodbye.
Peace!